Good afternoon, all, to those from Europe, and good morning for those from the United States. I am İlqar Flora, and I will be moderating the third webinar of our series, Beneath the Surface, through which we're trying to look at the issues that have shaped the Black Sea region, whether it's populism, disinformation, or today's topic, human rights. Joining me today are İlqar Mamadov, Chairman of the Republican Alternative Party RAL from Azerbaijan, Nino Tsagareshvili, Co-Director of the Human Rights Center from Georgia, and Rada Elenkova, Program Director of the Bulgarian Women's Fund. Welcome to all. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for this invitation. In the previous one, the previous discussion in this format with GMF Black Sea Trust we had in May 2020, a year and a half ago, and a lot of things have happened since then, which has had an impact on the situation of civil society in Azerbaijan. First of all, I must tell you that during our discussions a year and a half ago, I told the participants that our party is pushing for changes in the legal framework for operations of the civil society. This is one of the main, if not the main issue concerning civil society in Azerbaijan. But unfortunately, I have to say now that 1 year and a half after, we haven't still moved even an inch in that direction as a country. Although we have to recognize there have been some efforts made on both sides, both of us, opposition, and the government, but there is no improvement, absolutely. When our parliamentarian got his seat in the parliament, we have one parliamentary seat out of 125. The first thing he said and pronounced and pushed for in the parliament was the change in the legal framework for civil society. We campaigned around this issue for several months, and then the government started talking to civil society on these changes at the very high level. President's assistant conferenced several times with representatives of civil society to collect concerns, ideas, what can be done, and but then the war erupted between Azerbaijan and Armenia. In September, there was a lot intensive fighting, and after the war, there was some post-conflict movements, and still continue. So the government is so much preoccupied with, is so much busy with other issues, it says, that it still cannot concentrate on the improvement of the legal sector. Then we, as a party, prepared a comprehensive package of legislative changes, which would totally improve the situation, the operational environment for civil society in Azerbaijan, and we published it. It concerns three different laws that govern the civil society operations in Azerbaijan. When we published it, the government immediately responded a few months ago that they have already prepared their own plan, their own legislative changes. And we received that with curiosity, but so far they haven't published it. I suspect that they don't have it. They don't have it. They simply just want this topic to be around, but they don't want to make any progress, any step forward. This is very much unfortunate because this undermines the credibility of the political process, which we have started together with the government. I mean, we responded positively to their call of dialogue between the government and opposition. We have been in discussions with them on this matter, many other matters as well, but on this matter in particular. But there is no progress. And we feel that the government so far doesn't have any intention Unfortunately, this undermines all the efforts we have made so far in this direction, and I can just observe zero improvement in the operation environment of the civil society in Azerbaijan for now, after 1.5 years after previous conversation in this format.
But outside of the political sphere, where there are few human rights advocates, have there been new actors or that have worked towards improving human rights?
Well, there are several organizations which continue surviving in Azerbaijan in difficult situations. You know, there are a lot of limitations. They have to change the formal methods of their work, but the substance remains the same. They are following the subject of political prisoners. They are following subjects such as torture, other human rights issues. They continue working, but this is not the scope which would lead to fundamental changes or would contribute significantly to fundamental changes in this area. We need a much stronger presence of civil society in the political debate and societal debate, let's say, and that need is undermined by the restrictions on civil society organizations that exist. Yes, there are some people and organizations which continue working, but the efficiency of that work is far behind of what would be the otherwise situation if we had proper laws in place. We live rather in a different, let's say, dimension, time, political dimension and regional dimension than, for instance, an EU member country or even a country which has an association agreement with the European Union, such as Georgia. So Bulgaria and Georgia are completely different examples. Plus, we are a political party who has a different function, which we are not a human rights organization. Our task is to create a framework and broad political support to that framework, which would enable various human rights groups to advocate their cause. And in that respect, the framework which we have chosen and which we actively promote here is the European Convention of Human Rights and the case law of the European Court of Human Rights. And as you know, this framework embraces many issues of individual human rights, from gender to hate speech and everything else. So we want to build a broad political support in the society, not a narrow political support, because political parties don't operate that way, they operate the other way, which would enable and let the human rights group to advocate the cause they think are important for our society to develop. And in that case, European Court's case law and the convention are absolutely useful instruments. We want to introduce the culture, or the very culture, that the European Court's judgments have to be executed. Azerbaijan has the worst record in terms of execution of the judgments of European Court. Literally, we are 47th, the last in the process of execution of the European Court judgments. And in particular, we are very bad, the worst country in terms of politically motivated, imprisonment. There are only 5 to 6 cases during which the European Court of Human Rights, during its entire existence, recognized politically motivated deprivation of freedom in other countries. 4 or 5 or 6 maybe beyond Azerbaijan, and 14 cases for Azerbaijan. I mean, we are times higher in number, and that's very negative sign. That's very, very bad and very sad. Right now, our party is pushing very strongly to have all those judgments executed. Of those 14 people, only 6 so far has been totally acquitted, and that's a big achievement, I must tell you, and that happened during the past year and a half. Although the judgments have been, issued since 2014, and only now we are getting them executed, and we made a lot of public statements, a lot of public presentations and campaigns in that regard, and we activated our international contacts so that this to be achievable. And I have to tell you, just a few days ago, Azerbaijan fully exonerated, fully acquitted 4 former political prisoners. That's a big achievement. So our attitude as a political party is that if we achieve efficiency, effectiveness in the performance of these tools, such as the convention, European Convention, and accordingly the scope of judgments of the European Court, in that case, the operation environment for civil society organizations, and in particular to human rights groups which are advocating particular issues or causes, will improve, and then we will have societal progress. And most important thing that is, we have to build broad support, broad political support for that. But I have to. I can also. I've made some points regarding the topics which have been invited to be voiced at this meeting, at this discussion. Regarding the freedom of assembly, we have been sent a question about the freedom of assembly. There are 2 trends, 2 different trends. One concerns demonstrations, and public political gatherings on streets, which are essentially banned. They are essentially banned because under the pretext of a pandemic. But that's too much. I mean, we see a lot of demonstrations around Europe on different issues, and pandemic is absolutely not a limit for that, not a barrier to that. Nevertheless, in the past 2 years, Azerbaijan has seen practically no demonstration, except one big demonstration last year in July, but that was on the issue of the conflict with Armenia. So demonstrations, political demonstrations, especially opposition demonstrations, are totally banned, effectively banned, under the pretext of pandemics. But on the other hand, we see increasing number of political parties getting registered. So it's conflicting trend, and that doesn't come from the good intentions of the government, let's say. So we look at the face value of this movement. Okay, yes, we have more parties freely registered and so on. But unfortunately, the intention is not that. It's not more democracy. The intention is to split the votes at the next elections, to split the votes as much as possible so that the government could benefit from that. Another question which we have been asked to answer was about freedom of expression. As you are well aware, in Azerbaijan, all political discussions, societal discussions on every aspect of life have migrated from TV and print media to social networks, because the TVs and the other print and traditional media are heavily censored. There are some attempts by the government to ease the censorship, but they are still very much afraid. There's no significant progress. There is a progress, but it is so much insignificant that we cannot talk seriously about any improvement in the media situation. So, and social networks remain the main place where free speech is relatively free, but lately, of late, the government tries to censor it too by having law enforcement monitoring individual publications and posts and reposts of people. And we hear reports from human rights organizations about people being called to police, to other law enforcement agencies for whatever critical remarks they have made about the work of the government or any other of any particular institution. So occasional harassment is present, and the government wants everyone to comply with the ideology or narrative they want to sell to the society, and uses, unfortunately, this kind of harassment. I mean, I'm totally against the situation when a person writes something on Facebook or social media, and then next day he's called to law enforcement, and that post, that writing, is deleted. And this is a common practice, unfortunately, in Azerbaijan. All that we are trying to keep in the focus of our attention, and again, but we cannot also at the same time limit ourselves, to tell the truth, to law enforcement behavior in this respect. We also have to follow broader trends in social media communication. Just recently, we heard that Facebook has been, there is some investigation about social networks, promoting such contents which make you individually more upset, more angry, more, and then this damages the quality of public discussion. So it's not just the law enforcement that undermines the quality of discussion by repression or the threat of repression. We have to, I think we are also following the human rights organizations, global ones, which are advocating for more transparency in the activity of social networks themselves, in terms of how they moderate their contents, or how they build algorithm for the social network content which pop up in front of you and make you feel this way or that way, and because a lot of hate speech is a product of such kind of algorithm.
But looking towards 2022 and what we've seen and learned from 2021, at least in your geography, in the case of Azerbaijan, it is clear that improvements will come incrementally, slowly, but it is a complex use of external mechanisms such as the European Court that you have mentioned, and external actors, whatever policy Facebook does. What would you say are some of the lessons from 2021 that we should bear in mind while going into 2022 as human rights defenders? If anything has changed that dramatically this year.
Yes, 2021 in Azerbaijan was still a post-conflict year. I mean, the first few months were just pure celebrations. Maybe first half of the 2021 were pure celebrations, which is understandable because Azerbaijan has won the war and so on. The conflict. This is the atmosphere. Now the time is changing in the sense that people are starting looking forward, and what we can do. I mean, we have seen activities of human rights organizations during the war. They were calling for respect to international human rights law, humanitarian law during the conflict, and after that. So what I'm saying is that the weight of the post-conflict situation has been so much on the overall situation in Azerbaijan, and in particular on human rights, activities, that I think we should not see the 2021 as a normal year, from which we should draw lessons for the next year. I think we should rather look at 2021 as 2022 next year as a blank list, an empty one, which is not a story that continues from this year, but we have to start a new story in both on all subjects that surround us, and in particular the human rights. This will be the next year will be important in the sense that we may experience new elections, we may experience constitutional referendum, which will push forward some debates on human rights as well. So civil society organizations, remnants of civil society organizations, I must to tell the truth, have to be ready to engage in such kind of debates if the government decides, and there are chances that a possibility that a constitutional referendum will be attempted. So these organizations have to be ready to engage in this debate and promote the human rights agenda in this debate. Yes, about the role of European Union and Western partners in this process, we are looking with very much hope to the December 15th summit of the European Eastern Partnership of the European Union. Azerbaijan is the only country of 3 South Caucasus countries which does not have a comprehensive long-term strategic, let's say, agreement on bilateral relations between EU and the country. The talks have stalled 3 years ago, and they have stalled because of economic issues, such as the trade, gas, and other things. Basically, the agreement is ready. There are a couple economic policy issues which need to be solved, and then there will be significant progress in building the bilateral relations with the European Union. So far, our relations are governed by 1996 agreement. Can you imagine? 25 years ago, it's completely different epoch, completely different time, and now we need to renew that, and that renewal doesn't happen. That's very unfortunate, and that's very unfortunate for the civil society in particular, and the human rights standards, because if we have that agreement, the European Union will have more instruments in dealing with the government regarding the development, the democratic development and human rights development in Azerbaijan. So let's hope that the 2 sides will find a solution to the economic differences, and in December next month, Azerbaijan and the European Union will sign this agreement. They don't have even a name for that, because if they don't know the depths to which it will be strategic, but it certainly has to be signed and renewed for that. Without that, my prediction is that the role of the European Union as a contributor to human rights progress in Azerbaijan will remain as limited as it is now.